Here is our presentation slide. For, and this is also our paper test review that the group
Yes.
yes.
Good morning, committee members. It is an honor to start our thesis presentation guided by Ms. Min Yijing, evaluating the effectiveness of the fifth classroom model in improving vocal students in C vocabulary. Today, we will cover 5 key parts of our research. And to start with the introduction, our students majoring in English for Science and Technology, we recognize XP vocabulary is essential, but somehow it's often hard to master. And to address this challenge, various teaching methods have been developed, and one widely used model is the fifth classroom. However, field studies have focused on its role in XP vocabulary acquisition, and that gap is where our research begins. Our study tackles 3 core subject details in our report, and to answer all of this, we developed 3 research questions. The first question, how does the flipped classroom model affect the retention and application of technical vocabulary in English for science, for environmental science? The second question, are the effects of the flipped classroom maintained several weeks after the instruction? The third question, is there any difference in the effect of the flipped classroom between the learner's recognition and production of ASP vocabulary? So now, let's shift our attention to the literary review presented by Ms. Chen Petru to further understand what's already been explored.
Thank you, Chang, and hello everyone. I'm Yufeng, and now I will present the literature review for our study. Let's start with the definition of key term. Firstly, English for specific purpose, or ESP, according to W. Evans and Callis. ESP refers to English courses designed for professional needs of learner in the particular fields like environmental science. Next is ESP vocabulary. It includes both specialized and semi-specialized terms, and as Voyager and Fernandez emphasized that mastering these terms is crucial for learners to function effectively in their field. Coming to the vocabulary acquisition, Smith described it as the process of acquiring, storing, and using new terms in context, and the process is dynamic, and it requires both understanding and application. And the last one, flipped classroom model, or FCM, is a teaching method where students study lessons before class and then participate in interactive activity during class time. However, research on the flipped classroom model is still debated. Some studies like Jalili and others found that cultural groups sometimes outperform the flipped classroom model, and students in some contexts even dislike the flipped format, while others like Kumagu and Komak Renalising showed that flipped classroom improve both receptive and productive ESP vocabulary acquisition. And this controversy show a research gap. While there's plenty of books about flipped learning, not enough studies focus on ESP, and even field report explore its real effectiveness in that context. Add to that the mixed result, and we've seen and we've got ourselves a meaningful research research space to explore, and that's exactly what our study aims to do. Next, Mingfuk will present our methodology.
Yeah, thank you, dear Feng, and good morning, the committee board. Now let's move on to the methodology part of our study. First, we adopted the quantitative experimental design by analyzing and comparing the immediate post-test and the delayed post-test score. And to do this, we aim at assessing 130 sophomore students, and four classes were randomly assigned to two groups, which was a control group who received the traditional teaching method, and the experimental group who received the flipped learning model. And any absence for a week is considered as a dropout, and after the attrition rate of 20.77%, we have finally our sample at 103 participants, with 47 in the control group and 56 in the experimental group. And next, we have to measure the learning. We designed the three kind of tests, which are the pre-test, the immediate post-test, and the delayed post-test, and all of them were identical, covering 38 ESP vocabulary items, and assessing both receptive and productive knowledge. Our pilot test confirmed the reliability by showing the Cronbach alpha value of 0.807, which was a very high score. And based on it, we continue to design the other tests. And as you can see on the slide, these are the Cronbach alpha value of the four tests, and they all at the very high score. And next, we have is our data collection procedure. Our study conducted over 7 weeks, with 1 week for the pilot phase. And in the pilot phase, we designed the teaching plan and the vocabulary test, and then we implemented it with 70 students and made adjustments where needed. And we have the 4 weeks of the main intervention phase, and after that, the follow 2 weeks for the delayed post-test. Next is, as you can see on the slides, there are some difference between the teaching plan of the two kind of teaching method. As you can see, the flipped classroom here, the students have to complete the pre-class activities at home and then come to the class to present and engage in discussion. Meanwhile, the traditional teaching method just go through the lecture-based lesson and complete the exercise in the textbook in order. Finally, is our data collection analysis. First, we cleaned our data by removing the dropping out participant, and then we coded the answer we put 1 for the correct answer and 0 for the incorrect answer or blind answers. And then we put all these data through the SPSS statistic version 27 to perform the mean score, the independent sample t-test, and finally the cohesity effect size. That is the methodology, and now we will move on to the finding and discussion presented by Chan.
Thank you, folks. And I'm in charge of the question 1. And to answer this, the findings of this question, we need to know the students' input level and their outcome after the treatment. First, we process with the pre-test data to check the student's attention level. And at the pre-test, students in the fifth classroom group had a slightly higher mean score compared to that of the control group, and you can see on the table with the mean score column here. And next, we use t-test and effect size analysis to determine whether these results show a statistically and practically significant difference between the two groups before the treatment. And look at this 0.054 p-value. This means there's no statistically significant difference between the two mean score, two groups, and next the effect size at the next column. Its absolute value was 0.369. It shows the magnitude of this difference between two groups level is small. So we have the conclusion, the difference in the mean score is trivial, more statistically and practically, and both groups at this time, they show the same level before the treatment. So move to the second table, the statistics we got from the immediate post-test, and both groups also achieved a similarly score. The p-value of 0.981 also show no statistically significant difference between the two groups, and the effect size absolute value was like close to zero, very small value. That proves the statistically that proves the practically negligible magnitude of the difference. And from that, we saw the two groups perform with no clear difference at the immediate post-test. And we have the finding for the research question one. In terms of evaluating the short-term effectiveness of the flipped classroom model, the flipped classroom model did not outperform the conventional teaching method in improving ASP vocabulary retention. And this finding is somewhat unexpected, as it contrasts with the previous study finding, which proves that effectiveness of the flipped classroom is outperformed even in a short-term context. And we observed and commented previous research concluded that there are two main factors contributing to this finding. The first is the static split in the learning side. The middle of the course might lead to the negative engagement with the pre-class material. And the second reason is the dominant use of reading and listening tasks for the pre-class phase that could cause the less interaction and bonding for students. And though the potential benefit of the classroom may not be fully observed in such short-term context, I think the true impact may emerge in long-term retention measures. And that's an interesting aspect that we present by Nicole.
Yes, now let's move on to our second research question. That's the flipped classroom can maintain the long-term impact to retain ESP vocabulary acquisition. And as you can see on the table here, the mean score now in the delayed post-test in the experimental group is significantly higher at 55.18 mean score compared to just 40.72 mean score in the control group. And to determine that if there is a statistical difference between two values, we continue to calculate the independent sample t-test. And the independent sample t-test here is smaller than 0.05, and specifically is even smaller than 0.001, which was a very great statistically significant difference between the two groups. And to continue to the Cohen's d effect size value, the absolute value here is 0.85, which was at a high score, and this can confirm that the practically significant effect of the method. And next, what does this data say about the flipped classroom? The flipped classroom not only works, but keep working in the long term, and keep working in the long term. And this aligned with the study of Kim in the 2018 and Rizai Fat and his colleague and in 2021. And what is the hidden reason about this? It's all about the student engagement. In the pre-class, student exposure with the vocabulary by doing the concept mappings, by glossary building, reading materials, or the listening material in the textbook, and then they came to the class for discussion and presentation. So the in-class is the chance for students to apply this knowledge and to retrieve the vocabulary in their knowledge and apply it in the meaningful context so it can locate the memory into long-term memory. And this also is mentioned by the study of Capito and Rodiger in 2008. So that's about the research question 2. Now let's move on to the research question 3.
Thank you for coming to the research question. In this question, our study compared the effect of flipped classroom model and traditional method on students, receptive and productive ESP vocabulary acquisition. Let's look at the table and pay attention to the red and highlight number and the absolute value in Cohen d row. The results showed that the after the course, both group improved, but there was no significant difference between them right after the intervention. This reflected in the mean score and p-value, which indicate that in the short term, the flipped classroom model was as effective as a traditional method. However, the clear difference appeared in the delayed forecast. That's why the flipped classroom group keep both interesting, receptive and productive vocabulary much better than the control group. You can see that the mean score between two groups, and the difference was statistically significant with the p-value below 0.05, and the Cohen-Bee so strong effect, confirming the practical impact on flipped classroom model. These results show that the flipped classroom not only have students improve the remember vocabulary in the short term, but also supports the long-term retention and active using. As we observed in the flipped classroom, students were able to recall and use technical terms like metabolic action or pathogenic organism currently in discussion and presentation. In contrast, many students in control group had difficulty in remembering and use them when needed. And the main reason is that in the flipped classroom, students learn new words before class and then practice and apply them actively during class time. And the repeat and meaningful engagement have students strengthen their memory and activity, their memory and ability to use vocabulary productively, not just recognize. And these findings highlight the importance of using active learning, and it support to nation views that vocabulary needs to be used actively and repeatedly to move from short-term to long-term memory. This concludes the finding and discussion session. Next time will present the conclusion of our study.
Thank you for, so now I will conclude my summarize. I will summarize our key findings. The first finding, both groups demonstrate equivalent vocabulary retention and application in the immediate post-test that confirms the short-term memory effect of the flipped classroom model. And the second concludes finding flipped classroom model proves greater for long-term memory consolidation and sustained learning through a student-centered pre-class and in-class activity. The third finding, it is revealed that flipped classroom model strengthen more effectively most receptive and productive vocabulary. So it depends on those findings and observation. We propose some theoretical and practical application. In terms of theoretical implementation, we can advance the flipped classroom research by validating its efficiency for its vocabulary acquisition. Second, demonstrating its delayed reinforcement effect, and this study also laid the groundwork for studying long-term or further studying research on long-term retention in flipped classroom context. And moving to practical education, and this study shows insights for educator curriculum designers, particularly in TOEFL students, TOEFL Plus. This is effectiveness for flipped classroom vocabulary learning is in the long-term retention, and flipped classroom might be effective models for engaging students. And this day also encourage the curriculum designers to properly design curriculum and an abundance of learning resources that play crucial roles. And additionally, it is advisable for teachers to foster and support a supportive environment for students to feel more comfortable. And during our research, we encountered three main limitations: short research duration, attention rate, and listening really dominate quick flash tasks. And learning from this limitation, further studies can research a similar topic with a better research design. For example, put more time for the implementation phase, pay attention to the dropout rate, and design the curriculum with the more multimedia integration material. And I think that is the end of our presentation. And here's the QR code accessing to our collected data and reference links. And thank you and welcome any questions or feedback from the committee board.
Thank you. Okay, so now
We are glad to hear the question. Yes.
thank you so much for your sharing. And now it's time for the Q&A. So the first question, why was there no significant difference in immediate post-test results between the control and the experimental groups, despite the previous studies showing short-term gains from the flipped classroom model? So, Fu, can you share something?
I just can repeat the answer.
Okay, the question is, why was there no significant difference in the immediate post-test results between the control and the experimental group, despite the previous studies showing short-term gains from the flipped classroom model?
Yes. For this question, thank you for the question. And first, why there's no significance in the immediate post-test? We come to some conclusion for some reason for this is both group have the both the teaching method have the same effect, and then in the short term the flipped classroom did not outperform the control group, and because of the previous study showed that the short term also have the outperform effect of the flipped class beyond the control group. So this is like an interesting conclusion that we came to, and based on it we can see that the ESP vocabulary items is they can remember them effectively in the short term, but in the long term we need to see further.
It comes to the second question. So, Fu, can you share your ideas? What criteria were used to select the 11 ESP vocabulary items per unit? And do you believe this number is sufficient to represent the learner's overall vocabulary competence in the environmental science? The criteria from our group to choose the vocabulary in unit is we choose the vocabulary week is struggle with strength. Vocabulary week is strength. Strength and difficult to understand because we use the family vocabulary for the student. I think it is very easy for them to understand and use them proactively.
So the next question is about the test. Okay, pre-test, post-test, and delayed test. Yes, Chair, are there any differences among the pre-test, post-tests, and delayed post-tests?
Okay, so thank you for your question. I want to say that the content for both the three tests are the same. The pre-test, the immediate post-test, and the delayed post-test, because we want to ensure there's no like bias on the level of the level of the difficulty between among each test, and it could minimize the variables and the bias that students may feel like strange or I think so. And also to validate the validity of the three tests, we also need ask for the validation from and instruction from the lecturer of this English for environmental studies, and I think that is kind of enough.
Well, you also looked at the rate of retention or reception and production of the vocabulary items. But I can see that there are only tests for the first unit contains the two parts of receptive vocab and productive vocabulary, while the other tests for the other units do not have those two different parts. So how can you make the difference between the receptive vocabulary and the productive vocabulary?
I think there's something it's not clear that we ensure that most four tests, even the pilot test, they all conclude two different parts: the receptive vocabulary test and the productive vocabulary test. And because we are the curriculum designers and test designers, so we mix the question. We mix the question in the test to avoid the teaching between among students. And after that, after collecting the data, we rearrange and key in the correct answer. So yeah, that's my answer.
So what are the criteria for you to design receptive and productive vocabulary item questions?
Okay. For first, the receptive, as we read the existing research, we see that the criteria for the receptive is the exercise test the initial encountering skill or ability of students. So it mainly matching exercise or the fill in the gap, and so we depend on that and we design the question. And in contrast with the productive one, it may be the exercise that students fill in the gap without a suggestion from the test, and that's all based on the existing theoretical and the existing research.
Thank you, Jian. And could you give some literature base, for the designing of the test items?
Yes. Let me move to this slide. Sorry for one minute, I will move to the slide. Yes, for the literature base for the design of the test, we write some papers about designing the test, and they provide the combined alpha value for the test. So by understanding link the receptive and the productive knowledge of a word, we design the test and do the to calculate the Cronbach alpha value. And based on this, as you can see, the Cronbach alpha value is above 0.7 is a very high score, and they can ensure the reliability of our test. So for this, we test all the tests with 5 units, including the pilot test. So the Cronbach alpha value here is like the literature base for ensuring our test.
This is the result or the base for the test?
Because the Cronbach alpha value is demonstrated to see some like the test is reliable, is fully is connected together or not. So the Cronbach alpha value is ensured for us to design the test.
Well, actually, what I'm interested in is how you design the test items.
The
I mean,
test
you
items.
base on what theory to design the test items?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is no mention of designing test items in here, because the tests, I mean, pre-test, post-tests are the core of the study. And yeah, it is not clear to me how the tests were designed.
Like we adopted some tests in the previous studies, and the receptive is first for recognizing the words. So as you can see in the test, maybe in like this one. Yes. So this for the first part is the receptive part. So it just simply requires students to recognize the word, but in the productive part, they require students to use that word in the context, not just only understand the meaning of the word, but need to understand the context to use the word and apply it in the full sentence. This is the receptive and productive knowledge that are mentioned in the study of Smith in 2000. Yeah. So we based on it to design the test.
There is no mention of the literature base for test design.
Maybe this is one of the limitations we should
And it is
clarify
also not
this
very
one.
clear to me which is receptive and which is productive vocabulary questions in the tests. And yeah, I still wonder why you use the same test questions for both pre and post and even delay. We may have the same vocabulary items, but I don't think the questions should be the same, because I do think that it might affect the result of the tests when the students answer the same question 3 times.
If we do this, we will minimize the other variables to affect the result of the student. Maybe in some other sentences, the students do not know about this one. The other words in the sentence, not the chosen words, but the other word, and they cannot answer that. So it
Yeah,
can be
I understand the difficulty level questions, but
Yeah.
it might be that the students remember the sentence, but not the vocabulary item. I mean, if they know the vocabulary item, they should know the item in different contexts, not in the same sentence.
Yes, but and that was one thing that both groups received the same 3 kind of tests, so it's still reliable for the 2 groups to go through this. And as you can see in the delayed post test, the split classroom still outperform the traditional
Maybe
one.
they can remember all the sentences
Not all the sentences, but they have a high,
or more sentences.
a higher score. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No more. All right. Thank you, Chan and Fuon. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
The committee.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay, so on behalf of the external examiner, I'm going to deliver the comments, okay?
Yep.
So here's the comments. The introduction provides a strong and comprehensive foundation for the research. It demonstrates a clear understanding of the topic, appropriate use of literature, and a structured plan for the study. However, some parts of the scope of the study overlap with what should appear in the methodology chapter, especially when describing activities and procedures in detail. This makes the introduction longer than necessary and somewhat dilutes its focus. The literature review shows strong effort in synthesizing a wide range of sources related to ESP, vocabulary acquisition, and the flipped classroom model. It includes clear definitions of key concepts such as ESP vocabulary, receptive productive knowledge, and vocabulary acquisition frameworks. The presentation is comprehensive and well supported by credible references. Minor improvements could include highlighting more clearly which framework directly informs your methodology and analysis, condensing slightly in places to avoid repetition, improve focus. For example, repeated emphasis on receptive versus productive vocabulary and avoiding overly long paragraphs.
I would add we need some literature review on test design.
The methodology is clearly explained and logically organized with appropriate detail given to research design, participant information, and data collection procedures. The data analysis methods are suitable and professionally applied. Minor improvements might include adding a brief rationale for choosing SPSS 27, ease of use, compatibility, statistical power, mentioning the validity of the test items more explicitly in addition to reliability. The findings are presented clearly with logical comparisons between experimental and control groups over time. In the discussion, the author successfully relates the findings back to the literature reviewed in Chapter 2. For example, the improvement in vocabulary retention supports previous studies by Nation 2013 and Kumisi and Komet 2019, while also highlighting local context, the Vietnamese ESP learners. The contrast between receptive and productive vocabulary is discussed with nuance and implications for teaching practice are clearly drawn. That said, some findings could be more critically analyzed. For example, why certain students perform better than others, or how student attitudes from feedback forms support or contradict test results. Also, limitations are touched upon but not fully explored, such as issues with sample size, teaching time constraints, or instrument reliability. The paper demonstrates a solid academic writing foundation and includes the required sections in a logical and coherent format. On paper 17 of the hard copy, I noticed that the figures in table 4 are not very clear. Please make sure to check the print quality and formatting more carefully for future versions. On page 29(8), the title of a cited study is written in all capital letters. Please revise it to follow proper capitalization rules according to ABA style. Okay, so that is the remark from the historian.